Beast got from Hiram Clark. 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 Beast got from Hiram Clark.
All right, y'all. Welcome in to the B Block Podcast. Appreciate y'all for being here. It feels like we were just here, like we just did this. And that's because we did. We, of course, went live after the Rockets forced a Game 6 against the Los Angeles Lakers on Wednesday night. It's really exciting, man, because I'm gonna be honest, and I was honest in the previous episode. I'll be honest in this one. I had them dead to rights. I did not feel like they were gonna go to crypto and make it happen to force a Game 6 back at Toyota Center, but they did that, and I feel like we got to give them credit for doing that. Give them credit for how they've shown up over the last couple of games. Y'all heard my take on it last night, and if you didn't, I encourage you to go back. The B Block Podcast, you can do that on the YouTube page or wherever it is you get your audio only podcast, and you can check out what I had to say in the immediacy of the game. But what I wanted to do in this episode was bring on one of my, I'm not gonna say partners in crime, because it ain't nothing criminal about what's going on here, man. I can tell you that. What we're doing is making an honest living, and I couldn't be more excited to be joined by, I would call a Houston sports media staple. Y'all know her from Chalk Talk, from Houston, from H-Town Sports Talk, and that is Kim Davis. Whether it's old media, new media, all the media, Kim Davis been there, done that, seen it all. And this just kind of give y'all some insight. This is also who I'm sitting next to at these Rockets games when we're at Toyota Center. So it looks like Kim. So the last time we were at Toyota Center, we were not sure, and maybe in some cases doubtful, that we would be back at Toyota Center to do that exact same thing. And it is a fact that we will on Friday. So first of all, Kim, thank you for your time and for your friendship. How are you doing on this lovely morning?
I'm great. As always, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. And we get at least one more shot at in our special seats tomorrow night. So I look forward to that. And man, what a couple of games, and I know that we have to put out of our minds what could have been had they won Game 3, as they should have. So they've really outplayed the Lakers in the last 3 games. But the scores, they're still in an elimination mode. They're down 3-2. When I went to Rockets practice before they left Brandon to head out to Los Angeles, I shot this video and I thought, you know what? They'll be back. I think there's a really good chance they win Game 5. And I knew it was about to start. And I have to give Ime Udoka some credit, because I've been one to sometimes question what he's doing in terms of adjustments and schemes. And he did some things differently last night that were effective, and the team played and showed up, and it was fun to watch. And so there's a Game 6 on tomorrow night at the Toyota Center, and anything's possible.
Yeah, no, anything is possible. And you kind of hit on this. That's what I wanted to get at, is like, even going into this game, I thought that, like you just said, the Rockets have outplayed the Lakers now in the past 3 games. So before this game, it was that they had outplayed them in the last 2 games, which is why it was a shame that they only had 1 win to show for outplaying them in 2 straight games. But water under the bridge now, as you mentioned. But what have you thought about how the Rockets got off the mat, for lack of a better term, right? How they've recovered over these last couple of games. We were there for how things went down in Game 3, and it was a collapse of epic proportions.
Yeah.
And as much as you gotta criticize and speak against that moment, I do feel like you gotta acknowledge and give credit to where credit is due. And over the last couple of games, they've really shown up. What have you thought about how they got off the mat?
I thought it was impressive. And I know we keep talking about this young Rockets core, but I think that Golden State series last year was so instructive for them. And I talked to Alpy about it early in the playoffs, about how what they learned, what he learned from that Golden State series last year, where they, down 3-1, forced to game seven, lost at home in that game seven against the Warriors, which for those of us who have covered the Rockets for many years, it just brings back all kinds of PTSD, right? Because we've seen that picture before. And he talked about that, how much they learned about the playoffs, how much he learned about himself and how to be in those moments. And so I think, because all of these guys, with the exception of Reed, who was there, although he didn't get much playing time in that series, they've been through it. So they're not like super seasoned veterans, but you got to give them some credit for that. So I thought they picked themselves up. I'm sure that they didn't like the way that they were being disrespected nationally. And the narrative just became so ugly about Kevin Durant. And I think they like Kevin Durant. I mean, I've been to every game except for one the entire season that was home. So out of 42 regular season, 41 games, I was at 40. Go to practices, I go to shoot arounds. And I've never gotten that these guys don't like Kevin Durant. So when you hear people come in and they talk about who you are and who you're not, I think they took it personally and they didn't talk a lot about it. I mean, of course, people wanted to make comments about Jabari Smith's quote when he said, "I just think we're the better team top to bottom." That's what everybody was saying going into the playoffs. So it's not like he said anything that was earth-shattering, but they had to believe that, and they played like it. And so, Alpy had the conversation. They had the talk before game 4. Yeah, before game 4. I've heard that, Amen and Jabari, have led like these dinner conversations, and it shows. And I was glad to see it. It was good to see. It was some good basketball. The Lakers, of course, made their runs because they are the Lakers, and they do still have LeBron, who's all everything. But the longer the series goes on, Brandon, as awesome as LeBron is, these games that are now closer together are not as good for him because although he is all everything, he also is 41 years old and carrying a lot of the load.
Yeah, you touched on a lot there. I definitely want to ask you about the KD conversation. I've got that in my notes for us to circle back on that. So put a pin in that and okay. Remember that we brought that up because I want to get you and I are both around, right? And so I want to have the conversation with somebody else who was actually informed on the team dynamics and how things work, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that, all right? So let's make sure that we don't forget about that. But you mentioned you mentioned a couple of players, right? Jabari and really Alpy. I'm going to kind of go through everybody. I got kind of a point or a question to ask about pretty much all of the relevant pieces in this. But you mentioned Jabari. All right. I feel like, so often KD or Alpy or even Amen are the headliner or the first guy that you talk about after a game. But I feel like right now needs to be Jabari Smith Jr.'s moment, right? If there wasn't one before and if there's not one after this, if we just live in the moment, Jabari Smith Jr., for how he's played for this team, not just last night when he led them in scoring, but really the entire series, I feel like has been a strong Jabari Smith Jr. series. And even when I think back to last year, I remember how much folks were complaining because Jabari didn't seem to be involved enough. They didn't seem like they were doing enough with Jabari, and that's still probably a criticism that I would have to this day. Not last night though.
Right.
Jabari did his thing, got 13 shots up, but led the team, like I mentioned, with 22 points. Had 22 and 7. So was 4-9 from 3. Has been really good on the defensive end of the floor. Just excellent, man. I saw somebody say it might have been one of my other Rockets Collective co-hosts, and I can't remember which one of them it was, but they were like, man, this is the Jabari we remember from Auburn. This is last night was like the Jabari that we always thought that we were getting. What have you look? I'll say this. Early in the year, I had Jabari Smith Jr. and Reed Sheppard as the players to watch for this team. This was early in the season. Players to watch. I said the 2 number 3 overall picks is a cute way to put it.
Yeah.
But the non-KD, non-Alperen Sengun guys, the role players to watch. I want to talk about both of them and start with Jabari though. What have you thought about how he's kind of responded to that rough stretch that he had I want to say around January,
Mhm.
and then the type of performer that he has been for them in this series, and particularly last night. Like Jabari, I feel like deserves some flowers and recognition for how he's like he was the guy everybody's talking about. Hey, if there's anybody on this team that clearly doesn't want to go home tonight, and it be their final game of the season, it is very clearly Jabari Smith Jr.
It is. Let me grab my puppy because he is. Oh, he didn't
Oh,
get out.
it's all good. This is a family affair. So
So,
the
no,
B
what you
Block
gonna do? You gonna be
podcast
on the
chat.
shore now? Yeah, he's not sure. So listen, I'm right there with you with Jabari, and I've said even before the series started, I thought Jabari would be a factor or a key because almost like Jabari changes the game for them. And I'll even go back to last year in that Golden State series. Jabari was a guy that was taking the shot, was playing some defense. I mean, that before the other guys, were able to get that deer in the headlights look before they moved on from that, Jabari was that. And so he did have a little bit of a stretch in January, which, players go through. It's a long season. But he's always, been good defensively. He's worked on his shot. And since Ime has been here, I mean, he talks about Ime. They don't run a lot of plays for very many people. And Jabari's one of those people. So he always would have to create for himself. And each year, I'm always interested in what the guys have worked on in the off season. And so the things he worked on was being able to, continue to shoot it, but find a shot and make and create more. And I think we see that. So I thought, as Jabari goes, let's pretend that there was a healthy Kevin Durant. We know what Kevin is, and we know for the most part what Alpi is. But I always thought Jabari was going to be a key. And he has stepped up and owned it and shown up and done it. And I think that's just, it's fun to watch. I mean, I like him. He's a great young man and a really good basketball player. And I'm with that whoever you were talking to that said, this is the Jabari from Auburn. This is the Jabari that we expected. And, he's playing big.
He's playing so big. And I think it's, like, I even got to the point last night watching the game where I was like, I don't know if they're going to win this game. I don't know if they're going to come back and make history. I don't know how this series is going to end. And I don't know what they're going to do this offseason. They're going to be one of the more fascinating teams, if not the most fascinating NBA team of the offseason. But whatever happens with the Rockets going forward, I want Jabari Smith to be a part of it. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know what it's gonna look like. I don't know if they running it back. I don't know if they trying to trade for a star. I don't know if they just want to go ahead and address the point guard issue that they didn't address last offseason. The beautiful thing about it is that they got so many different options. They have put themselves in the position where they are kind of like last year, where they got the flexibility to say, hey, you know what, we want to stand pat. We like what we got. We want to do exactly what we're doing right now. Or let's accelerate this a little bit. Let's cash in some of these chips and go get an established star, an established player, and let's go try to win a championship next year, which is what I think they were trying to do with the Kevin Durant trade. Yeah. And then everything after that just kind of fell off the rails between Fred VanVleet's injury, Dorian Finney-Smith being much more injured than I think any of us realized. I don't know how much they knew about it.
Right.
And of course, and I shout him out too. One of the bench guys came off the bench and did some good things for them last night. Yeah. Don't want to make it an all pile on Dorian Finney-Smith. We already know it has not worked out the way everybody wanted it to. And then of course the Steven Adams injury. Those three things consecutively all kind of like undermined the Rockets' championships, if not their aspirations, certainly the likelihood that they would get there. But it's been really impressive. How about Reed Sheppard last night? Listen, I didn't think much about it when LeBron pushed him. I kind of in the moment I was like, okay, maybe Reed was just in the way, got a little push from one of the GOATs, but no big deal. But Reed looked like he took it personal, went down there, got the pull up over Aiden, then picked his pocket and got the dunk the next time. What about Reed? Okay. And this is why I wanted to focus on Jabari and Reed, both the number 3 overall picks, both with the costly turnovers in game 3. All right. So a big reason why they ended up in this position. of having to fight their way back, but stepped up. What did you think about it?
Listen, I can't say enough about Reed Shepard. He has met the moment, and people that are not a part of the Rockets, like you said, that don't cover them. When after Game 3, Ime came in and made the post game comments that he did, people were like appalled. That's what Ime does. He gonna tell you the truth. He's not gonna sugarcoat it. This is what it is. This is what I said to them, and he calls out people. He doesn't care. That's not new. That's just what you know what you get from him. And Reed answered the moment. He said he looked at that play that night, the next morning, then he fleshed it and went out and took some shots. And he stepped up. And the other thing that I think has been cool to see, and we know that he can shoot it. There's a certain spot on the court that it's like he's almost just money, doesn't miss from. But what he has been doing better defensively, I think has been one of the big keys. He mixes up. I mean, the play that stands out is the one with LeBron after LeBron shoved him and then he went and picked his pocket, kind of like payback, right, from Game 3. But look at all the other times he's right there in their face, creating some havoc, trying to get his hand on the ball. I mean, doing all of the things. And so I can't say enough about the growth of Reed. And that's the thing. He's talked about all season, having Kevin Durant in his ear and helping him, having Fred VanVleet on the sideline, being able to keep pouring into him, and just the teammates he's on the court with. I think that has been, it's just been fun to watch. And so definitely when I look at Reed, but when I think about, imagine this team with a Fred VanVleet and with a Steven Adams, and of course with Kevin Durant, I think that they have put together something that could be special, but they, Brandon, they didn't address the point guard from a backup position, which I thought they should have. And this is before Fred VanVleet got hurt. So they need to do that. They need another person on the team who's a really good ball handler. Like Alpi was kind of running the point last night. He ran the show a lot and he facilitated. He took that role on, but I think that they definitely need to address that position. If they want to talk about getting the chip, I mean, if they don't get it this year, but I'm just saying that's something that they've got to address. I think it's important. And Amen, I think, has done an admirable job. He's just an amazing athlete and player, but he's so much more dynamic on the wing. He just is.
He definitely is. You mentioning that make me think about like the opportunities or the potential players that could have filled that role, and I'm watching some of them in these playoffs or in the play-in. Like I'm watching what Ayo Dosunmu was doing, and he's not necessarily like point guard, but he's a ball handler, could handle some of those duties, and obviously somebody that could clearly give you 40 in a playoff game, like he did for Minnesota, which I think would be useful to the Rockets or any other team. So, like, I think about Ayo Dosunmu from the Bulls that they didn't go at, or at least didn't land. Think about Kobe White, so the Bulls guys, Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. I'm looking at CJ McCollum, who's got to be almost my age at this point, out there cooking for the Hawks, and it's hard to believe that CJ McCollum couldn't have been had for a reasonable price. So there are three guys in the playoffs right now who I look at, or either in the playoffs right now or we're in the play-in, who I look at as guys who could have helped the Rockets in that way, in that endeavor, and they just stayed committed to the Amen Thompson point guard thing, or the point guard by committee thing. And I think I could honestly see the vision. I think I was talking about this last night of like what they were trying to do, or what they would like for it to look like with Amen Thompson. He's not a shooter, but like you said, he's an incredible athlete, hard to stay in front of him. If he could kind of figure out the point guard thing, then that perfectly situates Reed the way this team is constructed, at least. So we're talking with no Fred VanVleet. That situates Reed as like the smaller, undersized two guard who can just kind of run around and spot up and take threes, or maybe run a little pick and roll with Alperen Sengun. But if it did work, it did not work, and has not worked. The whole Amen Thompson point guard thing. But I get why they wanted it to, and why they tried it. It's just something that I would have probably abandoned much earlier in the season than they did, and then they have, because they still are trying to do it. But that's the thing about having young players, right? You're trying to
Right.
figure out what can they handle, what can't they handle, and then how does that impact the way that I build the team outside of that. But all things considered, I'm actually like, consider that neither guy is a point guard, Reed or Amin. I feel like they've handled it about as best as you could ask for, given that that's not who they are.
I'm going to throw out another name, and I've thrown this out, and I've had people ask me if I was on something. I go out and I get Chris Paul. You could get him for pennies on the dollar, just as a stopgap measure, not some huge long term. He's going to be back a part of your team. It's his last season, but you could have gone out and gotten Chris Paul to come in here late in the season after things fell apart. He didn't even get a chance to have his goodbye tour. I think that could have been helpful in terms of running the point to get you through in kind of a stopgap measure. Because one of the things we saw a lot with this team down the stretch, and people would talk about, yeah, they just fall apart, and late in the games you can't trust the Rockets. Very fair criticisms, and it's because, and you and I've talked about it, and even so, Kevin Durant's talked about it. When they get sped up, and that getting sped up is because they're missing that piece, that person who could get him in position, and he's not saying run the point. I'm saying that. I think if you didn't want to go out and commit to some veteran and have spent a bunch of money, and you are committed and you feel like Fred VanVleet is the answer, which I think they do, why not go get Chris Paul? Because if it doesn't work, you could just cut him. You're not committed to anything. He was just out there. So I thought Rafael Stone, in addition to players that you mentioned, it could have tried to make a deal for to go bring in, which would have been another level. But he decided, he made it clear he was standing pat, and initially he kind of said it like, yeah, we're just going to go toward next year. Of course, later he backtracked from that a little bit and said, oh no, I think we can win now. But he operated like he was punting to next year, and so I think all of this is gravy for him. And of course, he won't say that, but that's what Kim Davis talking.
Yeah. So the Chris Paul point is interesting because I thought even at the time that it would be like low risk, high reward, right?
Yeah.
On the risk part, like you said, because I did worry like Chris Paul coming there, and I'm thinking about Ime Udoka's personality, and I'm thinking about Chris Paul's personality, and I'm like, man, is it enough air in the room? Is there enough air in the room, right? And so that was my only hang up, but I was like, give it a shot. I mean, they're not gonna kill each other, like
they don't have to go to dinner and kick it.
Yeah,
because they are two alphas.
Yeah.
And you're right, but what's the goal here?
Right, winning, coherent basketball. And also, I said this at the time. Now, eventually, I kind of came off of it because I think I let people talk me down on it, and the whole thing, whatever happened with the Clippers exactly, was a bit strange. But like I also thought, like, even if he didn't end up playing, which I think there would have been plenty of opportunities for Chris Paul to actually see the floor, but I thought that the gap, the age and accomplishment gap, follow me here, the age and accomplishment gap between Chris Paul and Reed Sheppard. Now, mind you, again, this is after the Fred VanVleet injury. That's why we're talking about it to begin with. So the age and accomplishment gap between a Chris Paul and a Reed Sheppard would allow it so that there is no back and forth.
Right.
Chris Paul talk, Reed Sheppard listen, and hopefully, there's a relationship built there where, like, maybe Chris kind of like understands however he needs to deal with Reed would have been the way to do it. But I just thought it could have been good influence, positive influence on younger players. Granted, so long as Chris Paul didn't do a little too much. I mean, because I think that's the thing that a lot of people are fearful of. It's like, man, this guy, 6 feet tall or not, this guy is a bulldog, like personality wise. But I mean, man up, right? Like man up. I wouldn't have hated that. I'm right there with you on that.
But here's the other thing. I think also in the situation that Chris Paul was in, being what I would think was unceremoniously dismissed from Atlanta, basically sent home on the bus, and not having a chance to play in what he had already announced was his final season. I think that you may have gotten a Chris Paul that was still the person he is, but maybe tampered down a little bit. That stuff that makes you go, man, he's hard. Because I think he would have wanted to appreciated a chance to finish the season out on the court. Because when these guys hoop, I mean, none of them want to not finish, right? And I think that he would have handled it. But neither here nor there. That didn't happen. So here we are. And they have responded in a way and found a way to push this thing to game 6. And it's fun to watch, because the first 2 games were not.
They were not.
They were not.
That's fair. First 2 games were not fun to watch. Last 3 games have definitely been fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, and we mentioned him already, but haven't talked about him in depth yet because we're talking about this point guard thing. Amen Thompson. Okay.
Yeah.
Amen Thompson. It's like, even how about him hitting a couple of threes last night?
I was just thinking, like, he was like, I just got to take him, and we see him after practice, putting him up and practicing. He's not known as a 3-point shooter, not a great shooter, but he needed to make those key shots. I mean, we talked about Dorian Finney-Smith. He came off and made some shots, some big threes. But yeah, I think, and then Tari Eason, who is Ime says, Tari, about how great Tari is, he has said a couple times, most recently after game 4, about, well, Tari gonna go rogue, but we're not going rogue. He's so effective, and Tari was that last night. But yeah, I can't say enough about Amen, and the fact that he actually stepped back and took those threes, Brandon, much less made them.
Yeah, I love it. Like, so I say I love it. I love that he has the confidence. I do cringe every time he takes a jump shot, and especially every time he takes a 3. I'm like, I kind of like, ugh. But I love the confidence. And I'll just say that don't let him start seeing some of those go in, especially the mid-range stuff. He's not going to be a high volume 3-point shooter. At least I can't see that happening.
I don't either. Yeah.
But what we have seen from him, and he just has not quite perfected it. I'm very intrigued to see what another offseason of work for him does. But he's trying to get to those spots, right? Like, the big thing with the men that stands out to me is he knows he can get by anybody. He knows that, unless it's his brother, I guess, like, it's hard for anybody to really stay in front of these Thompson twins when they get a head full of steam. The issue with both of them, but specifically as we discuss it with the men, it's like, once he gets to the spot, he's not always really sure what he wants to do. Like,
it's that little quick hesitation moment.
Yeah, it's like, do I want to make a pass? Do I want to pull up? Do I want to keep pursuing the rim? Am I going to try to draw this contact? Because he knows he can get by you. He knows he can get to the spot. It's about, what do I do next? That I feel like he's still exploring, still learning, still figuring that out. There was one play, Kim, last night. It ended in a turnover. And again, last night ended up overwhelmingly positive. They won the game. They're coming back home for game 6, all of that. But he tried to do like a bounce pass, an entry pass, what they call it, entry pass, bounce pass, and was like 8 feet from the basket to Amen. And it was like, bruh, it's 10 players on the court. No less than 7 or 8 of y'all are standing right there where you try to pass that ball. That's not the look, man. Just go up and shoot it. Try to get fouled. Try to bank it in. You're literally that close to the basket, right? Like, it's not a 3. You're right there. Go ahead and try to make something happen. My man did an entry pass, bounce pass, like it was like he was at the 3-point line trying to set up Alperen Sengun for a post up. So like those are the things where it's like, man, once I used to say this about Jalen Green all the time, and now it just applies to Amen Thompson. And hopefully with the Rockets he gets better results. than when I used to say this about Green, but like he's got some superpowers that he just has not fully reined in or figured out how to use. That's really where we are.
Absolutely.
That's really where
Yeah.
we are. And once he does, watch out. Watch out.
And he's growing into it. Like, he can play a gazillion minutes, right? And be fresh. I think that's one of the things that's going to help the Rockets in game 6 because they are young and athletic, that they're better suited for these quick turnarounds, than perhaps the Lakers are.
Led by the 41-year-old LeBron James, yes.
Yes.
Fair
and
enough.
even Austin Reeves coming back, we know he can just shoot the lights out, but he hadn't been on the court in a game action in what, about a month, and he still, recovered from that oblique injury. So, he's got to work himself back into it. I mean, he made some big shots last night, but the Rockets have to just do what they can control, and I thought they did a good job of that last night. And when the Lakers went on their runs, they didn't get too flustered. You know what I mean? Because I was like, a run. Because this, you're thinking we don't want this team playing from behind. They're not really built for that. They did come back from an 11-point deficit and got back on track and went pretty much control the rest of the way. But at the end, you're like, oh my gosh, they have let the lead elapse to 3 points. They have clearly learned from the collapse of game 3. And that's all you can really ask.
Yeah, that's what made this. So what made this the best win of the season was that it saved their season, right? So like all of the wins after going down 0-3 in a series, every win after that is your biggest win of the season, right? Or the most impressive win of the season just because of the consequences of it. But that was my thing of like we all had that thought of like, they don't know how to finish no game. They don't know how to finish no game. They don't know how to do it. And the Lakers, to their credit, they got the greatest player of a generation. They got some more veteran players and Marcus Smart, who did not have a big game. But like that was the thing that I was worried about, was like, okay, they need to extend this lead. They don't need to let it get close enough to where they're forced to finish a game. I'm gonna be nervous about that, just straight up. I'm gonna be nervous about watching them try to do that. And then sure enough, that's what happened. They ended up having to actually close out a game. And so shout out to them, credit to them for actually doing the thing that I think so many would have been nervous about them actually trying to do. Okay, let's move on to another player, one that you just mentioned a few moments ago. And I just want to circle back to him real quick and make a few points about him. Because you talked about Tari Eason, I was there with you when they were talking about him going rogue, right? That post-game press conference of, I guess it would have been game 4 now, right? Yeah, game 4, where they're talking about how Tari goes rogue. And we were all intrigued to hear them, everybody, talk about what does that look like? How does that manifest itself for the team when Tari goes quote unquote rogue?
It started with Ime. Like the players didn't bring it up. They just responded to us asking them about it. Ime was like, well, Tari, he, when he's going rogue, blah, 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 blah. So that's how it started.
That's how it started. And then it prompted, and I think it was Varun at the Chronicle who had the presence of mind to say, you know what, I'm going to make this a theme of a question that I asked to everybody else that comes to the podium. And sure enough, they gave us, I think, 3 players. I think we got Sengun, we got Jabari, and we ended up getting Tari as well, Tari himself, if I'm not mistaken. So Tari Eason, what I wanted to say, like, guarding LeBron, hitting his threes, and bringing that energy and max effort that he's known for. Look, I thought, I'm just going to put it plainly, I thought Tari Eason had lost himself some money for how he played at various points during the regular season. Bruh might be making some of it back, if not all of it back right now, because we know how much more stock is put into playoff performances, regardless of smaller sample size or however long of a series you play in. Teams, executives, everybody keys in and focuses on what do you do when it matters the most.
These are the money games.
Tari has had some good money games. Would you agree? Like, he's been really good in these playoffs.
Absolutely. And I think part of it too is his mindset, because he's ferocious. Like, he's not gonna back down from LeBron James. That's not who he is. And
or nobody.
And so the challenge is, I mean, I thought last night that foul that was called that would have put him out of the game, and Ime challenged it, which I thought was a great challenge. That was the key moment in the game. You're late in the game, and you need Tari Eason on the floor, and so the call was reversed. The challenge was successful, and he had to stay in the game. But he's gonna push it. He's gonna, which is how he ends up with 5 fouls late in the playoff game, because he's ferocious, and Ime says he goes rogue, but that rogue piece that makes him do that, it gives you an edge that you needed, especially when you're playing the GOAT, of this generation, and LeBron James. I mean, and think about it. We saw Leonard early in the season, early in the playoffs, he and Marcus Smart were both just lethal against this team in terms of hitting the shot. The Rockets have come back and played pretty good defense on them. We just think about, what do you do with LeBron James? You're not going to stop him. But if you can, tamper down what he does in terms of getting everybody else involved, and you can put something on those guys, which is, I think they've bounced back and had a pretty good game plan. But yeah, you're right. Tari Eason has helped himself. There were people on, Twitter, because that's what happens. Like, well, he should have taken whatever they offered him. And I say, listen, the guy has a right to, it's his future. Bet on yourself and do what you think. But yeah, I think Tari Eason has earned some of whatever he may have lost if he did back. He's just, his upside is high. And I also think he's still learning. I think he's still learning how to play this game at this level. When I say that, that's not an insult, but there's so much other stuff in terms of the heads up moves and just the basketball IQ part of it. He's got a lot of that. And he ain't scared. That's big for me.
Yeah, man, he does not scare. Fearless, absolutely fearless. Got that dog in him, and I'll admit, I was one of those people who thought, man, he probably should have taken that. But I can respect saying, hey, nah, this is what my worth. This is how I view myself.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna go out there and prove it to you. And look. Tari impacts the game. Good or bad. He is right. You never. Tari Eason is never on the floor, and you don't know it. He's impacting the game from baseline to baseline and from sideline to sideline. His energy is just infectious, and then like what you mentioned, man, there is a ferocity. There is a dog in there somewhere, and I think every team, even for some of the boneheaded plays that he might have, or like, cause he'll go rogue. They were talking about him going rogue on defense, but he'll go rogue on offense sometimes too. Yeah. And even then, though, you're like, man, but he's playing so hard. Like he is the antithesis to everybody that tells you how nobody in the NBA plays hard or cares or plays defense or whatever, whatever it is people like to say about the NBA. That's not true. I invite them to watch Tari Eason play. I invite them to watch Tari Eason, and specifically the job that he's doing in previous games, but even in this game that he's done on LeBron James, I think is kind of a little bit like an unsung hero type of thing, and not just that, but because the Rockets struggle to shoot so often, right, and struggle to shoot so much, and they're known as a defensive team, I don't think people thought enough about how like lackadaisical or not great their defense was in those first couple of games. They have picked it up tremendously, Kim. Tremendously on the defensive end of the floor, and Tari Eason, Jabari, who we mentioned earlier, but Tari Eason has been a big part of that.
Brandon, one of the other things that this team is known for is being the best offensive rebounding team in the league, right? But there was a switch last night, right? They were way down the offensive rebounds, and I think that was obviously intentional in terms of when I talk about schematics and what Ime did differently. So where do we need to be in terms of with our offense and where our focus needs to be. And so we're going to be in some different places and approach it a little differently. And I thought I'm gonna give Ime credit because I felt like in the Golden State Warriors series, he didn't make great adjustments until later in the series. And I asked him about that to start the playoffs, like kind of how he thought he had grown. And one of the things as a coach, I think that's fair. And what he said was making the adjustments and not waiting so long to make them, in a nutshell, is what he said. And I think we saw that in the last two games, but especially last night. And I can appreciate that about a coach. Like, okay, it's not going to take me to the off season to say I got to make some adjustments. We're going to make them along the way. And again, as you and I mentioned, albeit a couple plays in game 3, the Rockets come back home and they're 3-2, but they're not. They're down 2-3. I think they win game 6. And I don't even know if game 6 will be close. I see L. Young said Rockets by 13 on Friday. Not sure if that is what it'll be, but I think the Rockets coming back. I think they've been through enough, Brandon, to not be, overly confident. Like, yeah, we just got it, but to have enough confidence to say we can win it. And when I hear national guys talk about they don't know what they don't know because they're so young, this team has been through a lot these last 2 years. They know some things. And I think the Warriors series helped them grow up in terms of the playoffs last year. So I think they're well aware. And maybe the fact that they feel like, the whole stat of no one's ever come back from 0-3, they don't care. I like that.
What do you think? Now, look, I thought history was not on their side with that, obviously, because no one's ever done it. And they didn't look like the best candidate to necessarily do it. But even with that, I said, man, they have found some things.
Mm-hmm.
that can translate from game to game. And let's not forget that to go into this series, a lot of us thought, and not just a lot of us, they were the overwhelming betting favorite in this series going into it. Now, that was before Kevin Durant went down and hasn't played most of the series. And now Austin Reeves is back. So much has changed since the beginning of the series now. But a couple of the things that have changed in the Rockets' favor are the defense that we've already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next player that I want to bring up, and that's Alperen Sengun. His numbers didn't necessarily like wow you, but he had 8 assists, 9 assists. He had 8 assists last night.
Yeah.
And that was more than anybody in the game. And he was so clearly, if not the point guard, the common term in Rockets community is the shin hub.
The shin hub, right?
The shin hub was this was one of the better examples of them just kind of running their offense through Sengun, whether it be through the high post or the elbow or whatever, and just kind of letting him make the reads and make the decisions. They would throw double teams at him. And Sengun, right, Kevin Durant's their best player, but Sengun is definitely better at making decisions and making passes out of the double team. That's the one probably the only thing on this planet Earth that he got over KD. And so that strategy that they were able to deploy and have been able to deploy against Kevin Durant when he's been out there is not one that worked as well or really at all on Alperen Sengun, because he was able to dice him up. What do you feel like what Sengun has done for his reputation over the last few games and having his best career playoff game and the one that they coughed up? So that that wasn't his fault. He did his part in that game. Right. He's pretty good in the most recent game, or I'm sorry, in the most recent home game, right, in game 4. And then, of course, last night leading the team in assists, being the shin hub and all of that. Like, I feel like he's done himself already a 2-time All-Star, kind of a definitely at this point an established player in the league. But I thought he's one of the guys that like had questions about like what's his future gonna look like. He's Absolutely. The most sensible. He could be the most sensible big time trade piece to go get another guy. Is he good enough to be the best player on a winning team or on a contending team? All these questions that are surrounding him as a player. What have you thought about how he's kind of turned his series around after a really rough first couple of games against these Lakers in this series?
I think you make some really good points about Sengun. I think he has really changed the narrative about him and the way he's shown up. I mean, the way he's able to read defenses and kind of pick them apart. He was super calm in some of those moments. I mean, we've watched Alpy since he's been here, and we've seen him sometimes like, what is he doing? Like make these plays, right? But he's been very heads up in terms of facilitating and making great passes and getting people in position and being able to see what needed to happen. I give him a ton of credit. I mean, all the people who were trying to run him out of town, like, man, because look, we saw this. If last year got Jalen Green credit, what's going to happen to Alper and Şengün? I think that Alper has, and those are people outside. That's not from people inside the organization. But I think that he has probably quieted some of that noise. But when I look at what he's done, it has been meaningful and it has been impactful in terms of how they were able to win these last couple of games without him playing that way and the heads up and some of the things you mentioned, like falling prey to the trap and turning the ball over. He has been so much better at that. So I give him credit. He's the one that initiated we had a conversation, like, we ain't going out like this before game 4. And it was funny. They talked about it, how it was, Amin said it was super motivational, and they all talked about it, Tari. And it was funny because Alpy said, I asked Amin, how was my English? And he's like, well, you messed up some stuff, but we know what you meant. So he's taken on that leadership role, and it's mattered. They've responded, right? And that's the thing I see about this team. People say it lacks chemistry. I don't really know where they get that from. Maybe it's because of how in the fourth quarters, they've had some issues. I mean, clearly closing out games have been issues. But in terms of, if you talk about chemistry with each other, I do think they trust each other and they respect each other. So I think it's been a little unfair for people to act like, whether it's Kendrick Perkins calling them the dumbest team in the league and the most dysfunctional team.
Yeah, I know that's not necessary. That's crazy.
That's way crazy. I'm like, is that what we're doing? But I feel like they've made the adjustments. I think the people that needed to step up, Brandon, they've stepped up. I thought Alpy, instead of saying, okay, I need to score 25 or 30 points for us to win, he did what they needed him to do to win, right? And to me, that is when you have the right kind of mindset about being a winner. What does it take? Maybe I'm not scoring 25,
Yeah, well, I mean, it is having a feel. This was a great example of feel and understanding what the game is sort of dictating from you or requiring from you. And Alper Şengün definitely understood the assignment in this particular game. But I will say that, first of all, if he had played in the subsequent games the way he did in games 1 and 2, we wouldn't be this far. Series would be over with. Yeah. Like he could not. This is the point I've been making about Şengün, is that, and the reason why the whole playoff thing, because we understand things get magnified. The reason why the whole playoff thing was becoming a little bit concerning, because it's like, yo, the Rockets don't have a chance if Alper Şengün gonna get outplayed by Luke Kennard, Marcus Smart, and then lose, or it even be a wash in the matchup between the DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes conglomerate of Lakers big men. Like, he needed to be better than Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, just like on an isolated individual basis. And then head to head, he needed to be better than DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes. Now, I understand that DeAndre Ayton was dominant on the boards.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't matter because the Rockets were getting up so many more threes, and I think they were able to do that because of, in large part, because of Alper Şengün's facilitating, and in large part because of the defense that they were playing. So I think it's huge. Like you mentioned it, the leadership point. Like, he stepped up as a leader both outside and between the lines, right? By using his voice to kind of start that meeting. Some people might want to dismiss that, how important it is, but for somebody like Şengün, I think huge. It is. I think it's definitely a kind of a turning point, or like a flashpoint that you can kind of look at and say, hey, when did it really become Alper Şengün's team, right? Sharing the spotlight with Jalen Green before, and then Kevin Durant comes in, right? So, like, when did it really become Alper Şengün's team? We might be able to look back at this and think about that transition of, hey, backs against the wall, season on the line. I'm gonna step up and say something, and then I'm gonna go out there and have my play back it up. So shout out to Alperen Sengun for stepping up his play over the last few games. Now, I told you that we would get back to the KD conversation.
Yeah.
So now that we're 50 minutes into this thing, I'm just gonna let you go. I'll ask it this way. What is what do you feel like is most what do you feel like is misrepresented the most in the KD conversation overall, just as it relates to his time here? Because I think there's a lot. The guy's been around almost 20 years. There's a lot that's kind of maybe misrepresented, or people just have strong opinions about him because he's been around
Yeah.
so long and has done so many different things. But when it comes to the Rockets version of KD, what do you feel like is like the biggest misrepresentation or misconception with him?
Well, I'm gonna start with that his teammates don't like him. I just think that's wrong. I think they're dead wrong about that. I don't even entertain the thing about him quitting on his team. I mean, look at his history, right?
Come
He
on.
played more minutes this year than he played since 2014. That's not who he is. In fact, Brandon, I really hoped he wouldn't have tried to play in game two, because what we know is when you have an injury, and it was, when I first heard, oh, he banged knees with somebody, right? I'm like, oh, okay, he's a little sore, he's got some stiffness. And then it became, well, actually, it's a deep patella contusion, bruise. I was like, oh no, right? Because that takes time. So he comes back, he tries to play through that. But what you end up doing is overcompensating with your body. And then now he has this ankle injury. As a person who's had 3 ankle surgeries, I understand about ankle injuries. Never played at this level, obviously. But so I think the misrepresentation for me is one, that his players don't like him. It's a problem, and they don't have any chemistry, and they don't like him. All I've heard all year, all season, is how much they appreciate his work ethic and how he pours into them, and how helpful he is. I think because Kevin Durant clearly is a leader, but he doesn't lead the way some people think leaders should lead, and they've never forgiven him for that. Whether it was leaving OKC to go to Golden State when Golden State couldn't get over the hump against LeBron and Cavs, okay? They hold those things against him like somehow it's an attack on the front to his who he is, right? Like his how he's built. And I just think, like, when you cover him, before I would just cover him when he came to town, but being day in, day out, talking to the players who are going to battle with him, that's not what they get from him. And yet, listen, we've covered stuff long enough. I certainly have, to know when you're getting this is what you should say out front. This is how we, there's a body language thing. Listen, I covered the Rockets back when they won championships. I covered the Rockets with James Harden when he fell out of love with Dwight Howard. I covered it when he fell out of love with Chris Paul. I mean, I've seen it, right? That's not what's happening here. And I think, so I guess to answer your question in a long way, I think that's been the biggest thing. And I just think it's just wrong. People got it wrong.
Yeah, the guy is all ball. Like, I mean, it's literally all he does is play basketball. And then he plays 78 games for him this year. It is, for I was saying on the radio that most Rockets fans will probably trade the health and availability of the regular season that you were offered for health and availability right now for the games that mattered. If, say, Kevin Durant played 55 or 60 games instead of the 78, but he was fully healthy now, and obviously you don't get to do that. Like, it's just a funny game to play, but you would take it, right?
Absolutely.
And that is because he came here and did exactly what they brought him here to do. He was exactly what we had known him to be for the previous 18 years or however many or so. Like I don't think you could have been more on brand than Kevin Durant was this year by like wanting to play every game and playing all but 4 of them. I think he only missed 1 because of injury. He had a personal thing he had to miss for, but like
early in the season,
I think that was in Utah or something like that. But either way, he was around and available all the time, and not just around and available, Wasn't no load managing with this one. Wasn't no minutes restriction with this one. This one played more. Kevin Durant, that is, played more minutes than anybody, I think, other than Amin Thompson, who
Yeah,
is like kind of like an energizer bunny or something like that. Like he shouldn't be
right.
trying to play as many minutes as Amin Thompson at this
Right.
age.
At
But
37, right.
everybody else, all the rest of you jokers, everybody else in the NBA, Kevin Durant, sorry to break it to you, he outworked you this year.
Yeah.
He like just the empirical data shows you from the games that he played and the amount of minutes that he played and the minutes per game and all of that. He was outworking most. So and I think if like the audience doesn't appreciate that or if fans don't appreciate that, I can tell you who definitely appreciates
His
that.
teammates.
His teammates, everybody that's involved with the actual team, teammates, coaches, everybody that's got a stake in like an actual skin in the game, actual stakes in this.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that
Appreciate it.
what you hear them say, Brandon, all the time is just his work ethic, right? Like
It's
I hear that
incredible.
over and over again, how he shows up. And so you've heard, if you interview Kevin, and one of the things he said one day, he said, it's like, well, how much would you want to play? He says, I always want to be on the court. I want to play 82 games, 48 minutes a game,
Mhm.
and I want to make every shot. And he goes, no, seriously. I mean, that's his approach. Not okay, so not necessarily realistic that you're going to play all 48 minutes and that you're never going to miss a shot, but that's his mindset. And so, because he's not a fiery, I mean, he's very in the locker room, he's sitting back amongst everybody else. There's no, okay, here's Kevin Durant, the superstar, future Hall of Famer, kind of off to the side. We've covered those guys. That's not who he is. And I think people almost hold it against him because he doesn't have that. He may come across as a little aloof if you don't know him. But what you see from him and how he treats people and what his teammates think is different from this other narrative. I watched him one day and I was like, when he comes into the stadium, he speaks to everybody along that,
Everybody.
everybody, all the people. And I'm not talking about media. I'm talking about all the other people who sometimes may be overlooked because of what their role is in the stadium, whether you're an usher or you're on the scorer's table. Kevin Durant, I just like, how does he get this rap of being this guy? And I think it's because he doesn't do it the way some people want him to do it. And he ain't backing down from who he is. I appreciate that about him.
100%. Now, kind of say this for last, and we got a comment that will lead me into this. Okay.
Yeah.
L Young is asking, did these two games save Ime Udoka's coaching job? And the way I was going to word it was a little bit different, but I'm going to throw this to you, Kim, and then I'll ask you something about the draft. We'll get out of here. The Texans draft, that is, and we'll be real quick. Rafael Stone and Ime Udoka, they might beat the allegations if the Rockets actually mount this comeback. Like, I don't know if what they've done so far is enough to keep well, first of all, let me be clear. I'm not really sure either one of those is under any kind of actual pressure. It's more of
Right.
like outside, what people are saying. Now, I think what the people are saying is not unwarranted and should be considered by the people who are actually in charge. Like, not that because they're saying it, but some of the things and points that they are making are
Right.
valid points. That's what I'm trying to say. I think there are valid cases to be made to do some serious introspection at the very, very top of this thing. I just don't know if that's actually happening.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, that's why I call them the allegations, because this is a bunch of Twitter stuff. This is what people are talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Rafael Stone and Ime Udoka might actually beat the allegations if they mount this comeback. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how Rockets fans are going to process this whole thing after saying, hey, that young core that you got, that Rafael Stone put together, it ain't no good. Throw it away. Hey, Ime Udoka, he can't coach. Get rid of him. And then, lo and behold, that young core comes together without Kevin Durant, by the way, and mounts a comeback, right? Ime Udoka makes some noticeable changes in his game plan that help give the Rockets an advantage. And then you have to say, well, man, I might have been mad and frustrated all this time with both of them, but they beat the allegations. I think they have a chance here. If the Rockets make history, I think a lot of that fire Udoka, fire Stone stuff, it's not going to go away, but I think they're going to have to quiet that stuff down. You win this series, come back from down 0-3, and then just show a little bit of fight, something similar to what you showed last night against the Thunder in the next round. And I think that'll go a long way for the guys that's in charge. I don't know about you.
So I agree. I do think that would go a long way. And to answer the question, I don't think Ime Udoka's job is in jeopardy at all. And I'm going to go just beyond basketball. He signed a new 3-year deal last year. Tillman's not going to fire him and pay that money out. So he's good.
Not in this economy. Not in this economy. No.
Not in this economy. He's just not going to do it. Now, Rafael Stone's been around longer. And so I do like the young core. I think that there may be some questions about some of the things that Rafael Stone has done or has not done. I mean, we talked earlier about just this stubbornness to not go get a point guard, right? I think that's something that is realistic for people to say, man, we don't know. I mean, no, you and I have talked about this. You mentioned it earlier. We don't know about the Dorian Finney-Smith. Did you not know he was that injured? Did he not know? I mean, because you signed him for 3 years at a pretty big number, right? That's your point guard right there if you need one. You hang on to the Jae'Sean Tate piece longer. I mean, I don't know what those things are in terms of how you're building. So I think if there was heat, and I'm not sure that there is, I think it's more on Rafael Stone than on Ime Udoka. If nothing more than the fact that Ime got an extension, that buys him more time. But in terms of what we're seeing, I give that credit to Ime Udoka and these young players, how he has gotten them up for being ready to do the things that they've done, even to get it here to a game 6 and hopefully push it to a game 7. It'd be great if this team would make history. I think it'd be really fitting for how things have gone this year. And I really hope that happens. I don't think anybody gives them that much of a shot against OKC because OKC is just so good. And you are shorthanded, right? You would need Kevin Durant, Fred VanVleet, Steve Adams, Akeem Olajuwon. I mean, you're gonna need some people to beat them, okay?
See what Clyde is doing.
What Clyde up to, right? They're just that good. So I think that you look at how they've turned this series around. I've got to give credit to. We talked about the young core, and I started off by being willing to give Ime Udoka credit because I have sometimes wondered, could he make more adjustments? Now, here's one thing, Brandon. Perhaps this happens in the offseason. I think Ime's your coach next year as well. I think he should be. Does he make some changes on his bench?
That's what I've been saying.
And get some help for the offense. Does he go get an offensive coordinator and listen to him? That may be a conversation, right? So that could be a change, but I think Ime's your head coach whatever happens in this series.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way because I thought, I've been asked about this and I've said it. I thought that Stone should be on the hottest of seats if anybody's going to be on one. It should be Stone on the hottest of seats. And then when it comes to Udoka, we were having this conversation on the radio. I think my co-host was saying that he was out on Udoka, and I was trying to explain to him, that if you're going to be out on him, this particular thing ain't gonna be the reason. I think it was the whole, calling the players. There's some people that rubs the wrong way. Maybe some of his style. But then somebody asked me on social, just kind of playing out on the radio. Somebody asked me on social, listening, like, "Are you out on Udoka?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm not out on Udoka. I'm out on what they do offensively at times, and I think they need like absent of a Fred VanVleet this year, who they of course did not have." They needed somebody that could help them figure out what their identity was going to be on offense, aside from just get a ball to Kevin Durant.
Right.
And I would like to see more experience on. I think some of those younger guys that he has on the bench are have promising careers, but I've thought at least my non-expert opinion is that there needs to be a more experienced and a sharper offensive mind, some combination of those two things, like either one of those things or both. That's helping Udoka, right? Like I felt like
we say about the Texans.
they're the Spider-Man meme when it comes to that. Like
Yeah.
I felt like my man needed some help. So hopefully he gets that. And no, I'm not out on Udoka, even though he's had plenty of things that you could gripe about. I think overall it's a net positive and certainly like a culture shift. Okay, so we've gone over an hour now, but I did want to ask you about the Texans draft. We got Arthur asking, do we have time to get Kim's take on the Texans draft? I was going to ask you anyway. Kim, tell us, because you were there, you were covering the draft, or at least you were at NRG. It's not Reliant yet again, is it?
It's still NRG. Yeah,
still, okay.
We got some cookies that say Reliant, but it still says NRG.
Man, you want to talk about a way to confuse a brother. I just started calling it NRG finally. You know, I'm one of those that's gonna call the thing. So like I know Dykin is Dykin. I'm trying to be professional and everything. But I'm still like if I'm talking to somebody from the town, like a townsperson, not doing media and professional stuff, but like just another person from Houston. Yeah. And I tell them, hey, where you at? I'm at Minute Maid. I still do that.
I do Minute Maid. The Juice Box, Minute Maid.
Yeah, something like that. So like NRG was Reliant for a while too. So and I'm from that little part of town. So like, we passed by there. It's like a landmark for us.
Right.
So now it's gonna be Reliant. But you were there. Yeah. You just tell us, for the B Block podcast audience and for myself, did you get the sense that the Texans got them 3 starters and 4 future Hall of Famers and all pros, and that they go set the world up? You know how we all like to feel at the end of the draft.
So I don't know that I got that, but I do think I do think that they had a solid draft, right? I thought they had a solid draft. As far as much as Caserio talks about, we don't draft position, we draft for need. I think that's just GM speak, because you got to get what you need. You're foolish if you draft. So I'm going to go, you draft the best person at the positions that you have holes in. And they have really addressed the offensive line. And so one of the things that when we're there on, covering the draft, we get a chance to talk to the players right away. Like they'll be in town next weekend for rookie mini camp, but getting a chance to talk to them and then kind of reading something about their background. One of the things with these offensive linemen, these offensive players that they brought in, is they have the kind of, it seems like, okay, just from on paper and talking to them, the kind of edge or swarm mentality, if we want to go with that the defensive side has had all along. And I think that's what DeMeco wants, right? That kind of, like they talked about Rutledge, the first round pick, he'll punch you in the face. And we're not talking about people being violent, but just being more aggressive on offense. So I thought that they went out and addressed some needs and got that. The player they got in the second round, I think he dropped to the second round because, I think they may have taken him if they didn't know he was going to be there. So I thought, they needed to get another young defensive tackle. And so I thought that they made some moves. Now, of course, they're, filling up the roster, the training camp and OTA and all those rosters with guys that are free agents and people that didn't get drafted. But for the most part, I thought they did a good job. I know that there are some who would like, man, I really wanted to see them go out and address the wide receiver room. They got a tight end. We'll see what that looks like. And I'm one of those that thought you need another person for that room. Maybe you don't get it in the draft. Maybe you get it in free agency. We'll see. Because here's my thing, Brandon. I think there's a lot of question marks about the wide receiver room, right? I think everyone's excited about Tank. One, you just can't help but love Tank as a person and what he was as a player. We don't know how much of that he's going to be this year yet. That was a catastrophic injury that he suffered. And he's a little guy, right? He's working really hard. And I hope he gets back and gives us all that he was able to do before for him. So there's that. You know who Nico Collins is. I think we're still not sure yet. We believe Jaden Higgins is going to turn into something, right? We think that Jalen Noel has a big future. I'm not sure where they are on Hutch. There's a lot of questions in that room, right? And I think that's a room that maybe it's like, did they address it? But overall, I think they had a pretty good draft.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. Now I might be a little bit higher on Jaden Higgins than a lot of folks, but
I'm high on him. I just need to see him take that step. I think he's got the things, and part of that comes with Nick Caley knowing how to use him, and the same with Jalen Noel. So for me, my issue kind of goes back to the OC.
Yeah, and now Noel's the one that I feel like you know, has a lot of potential, but does need to take a little bit of an extra step, kind of with his
Yeah.
route running. Like he's got the physical tools. He's fast. He's tough as nails for kind of like a you know a smaller guy. Like he's a shorter guy, but he's well built and
Yeah.
strong and all of that. Like really good physical attributes, the right attitude. All of these guys have like the right makeup. It seems like, but I just feel like they need more when it comes to come to your point about the wide receiver room. Like, and even if it's not the wide receiver room, they just need. That's why I like seeing what the tight end is going to do. It looks like he might be more of a blocking tight end, but it's sure-handed. It sounds like Marlon Klein, the guy they drafted out of Michigan. Of course, they brought in Foster Moreau, and Dalton Schultz was extended. But I'm just
listen, Brevin Jordan, right? If he can be healthy, I'm curious what he can give you. You know, because he's kind of a hybrid, so that could be somebody. And it's just prayers up, fingers crossed.
They definitely need weapons though. I've specified speed, a need for speed.
Absolutely.
They could use some speed. They could use some weaponry. This guy Lewis Bond that they drafted, it looks like a sure-handed guy. I don't know if doesn't look like a speedster, but definitely Boston College guy. So I guess he was coached by Bill O'Brien.
Yes,
but
we won't hold that against him.
Yeah. That's that's an interesting situation of worlds colliding. But a sure-handed dude, so look like he could be a good possession receiver. I just feel like they needed more reliable dudes. Now, you know, I like Caden McDonald as the defensive tackle. I think he's going to be a dog for them. So that's actually my favorite pick. But my favorite piece of analysis to give on this draft, I've done it already on this podcast. I'm gonna do it with you here now before we leave. As somebody who is not like a draft nigga, I'm not John Harris or Cole Thompson or you know, some of these guys that we know that are like knee deep into the draft. But when I saw Keelan Rutledge, and mind you now, I'm at the draft. I know you were at the stadium. I'm at the draft party at Avenida outside the George R. Brown, right, for our live draft show. So I'm sitting there with John Harris, and one of the things, you know, he can kind of get a little over his skis a little bit about some of this draft stuff, and he goes, talking about Keelan Rutledge. Tell me that guy doesn't look like Wyatt Teller. Tell me he doesn't look like Wyatt Teller. And so, you know, I wasn't looking at him yet, and so I got over there to my seat, popped up my laptop, and was making I was helping the 6'10" make a graphic. Wyatt Teller, Keelan Rutledge is the pick, whatever. And I looked at him and I say, "Bro, looks like a radicalized Wyatt Teller." I ain't gonna say what he radicalized on or about or what. And to be clear, I'm making a joke because he seemed like a very fine young man, polite, nice, all of that.
Yeah.
But just the look, okay. If we would go do the wrong thing and just judge a book by its cover, I say he looked like the evil twin. You know,
he go after it.
Yeah, he looks like Wyatt Teller's guilty conscience is what he looks like. Which, for the football team, for this offensive line, I'll take that.
I'll take that. Yeah. You know, that night, of course, when we talked to Nick Caserio, Nick is like, "Yeah, guy loves football. You know, he want to punch somebody in the face." He went on and said, you know, he's not at the draft party, which there's nothing wrong with being at a draft party, but that's Nick Caserio. He's like in the Airbnb somewhere with his wife. Just, you know, when he showed up in Houston for the press conference, he talked about like, this is all I had to wear. I mean, he want to play, right? He just wants to get down and dirty and play. He did get a chance to hang out. He said CJ Stroud reached out to him, went by the hotel. They visited for a few hours. And so all of those things are positives. You know, before we go, I want to also say how exciting it was to see them extend Will Anderson Jr. We heard yesterday that they have done an extension for Azeez Al-Shaair. All those are exciting moments. And, you know, I just think that they are doing the things. And listen, I would not read anything into the fact that there's not been an announcement for the CJ Stroud extension yet. The Will Anderson Jr. extension kicks in after the contract is over. So there still could be one for CJ before his contract ends. But now's when you have to really play chess and work with that cap, right? Will's money kicks in after that second year of Danielle Hunter's extension. Doesn't mean Will's gone, but they mean it doesn't mean Daniil's gone, but they can't pay him both. And so I think they're taking care of the people that they have to take care of to make room for the others that they probably want to take care of. Listen, you're gonna have to take care of Kamari Lassiter soon, Kalen Bullock. What are you going to do about Henry To'oTo'o? I mean, there's a lot of questions of guys who have been very big for this team. And so we'll see what they do along the way. But I did want to mention the Will Anderson Jr. extension. I was excited for him and his family.
I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you made the point that, and I'll say it this way, that it's much more of a balance in a checkbook than it is making decisions about players, whether you want them or not.
Absolutely.
All the guys that are in this conversation, if there was no salary cap, or if this was baseball or whatever, if they could just pay everybody and just write a blank and just have a blank checkbook and write blank checks, they would not blank checks, but you understand, they would pay everybody. They would take care of everybody if they could. Yeah. But this is more of a balance in the checkbook, being a good steward of your resources and just being smart, as opposed to like, are they sure about CJ Stroud? Like, right. and I've said this, whether you sure, I'm sure, they sure, whatever. Fact of the matter is, there is no better quarterback out there for them. Like, there is no clear path to an improved quarterback, right? Like, you're not going to actually reincarnate Tom Brady.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers is done. I know he might come back. He might come back, but he's done. So like, and I just use them as examples, but there's not like a veteran quarterback that you're gonna bring in. And I wouldn't guess that none of the rookies, and certainly you're not going to be bad enough to draft any rookie that's good enough to replce CJ Stroud.
As much as we like Davis Mills, we already know that that's not the answer.
Come on, man. Like, CJ had a bad 2 playoff games, man. But come on, man.
Right.
Like, why do
50 good games before that? So
we ain't got to go. We can say, hey, this was bad. You can't play like this. Period. We can say that without like going the extra mile of, but Davis and we should just go with Davis Mills. Like, come on, guys. Like, we watched the games. We've been watching football our whole lives. That's part I don't understand. But I digress. Kim Davis, tell the people about Chalk Talk. Tell them about the H-Town Sports Talk or H-Town Sports Show, and where they can find you.
So Chalk Talk, if you follow me on Instagram or on Twitter, you'll see notifications, or go online and subscribe to Kim White Davis, to my YouTube channel. I do Chalk Talk weekly. And then H-Town Sports Talk, we are on Saturday nights in the summer because we run some baseball on Friday nights on the CW 39. If you're in Houston, if you're not in Houston, you can get the CW 39 plus streaming app. I think I said it right. It's free and you can watch our shows anytime, but it's a weekly show. I'm on with a guy named Brad Gilmore. He's a big wrestling guy. I don't do wrestling at all, but it's a good mix. I mean, I love working with Brad. So we're on every week. It's a lot of fun. All things H-Town Sports Talk. So follow me online, Kim White Davis on Twitter, Kim White Davis Media on Instagram, Kim White Davis on YouTube. And I cannot wait to connect with Brandon and sit there tomorrow night at the Toyota Center and see what happens. And of course, in the future, we will be talking, I'm sure, about the Astros, but we just can't get it all in today because that's a whole nother story and another show.
That is an entirely different universe right now, what the Astros got going on. But I'll tell you this much. I am looking forward to being downtown because, like I said earlier, I didn't think he was coming back, at least not for no game. Thought we might be coming back for a press conference or whatever. I didn't think he was coming back for Game 6. So I'm glad that we are. I'm glad to be wrong. I'm not so dedicated to the opinion that I've now I'm rooting for my pick. No, I'm rooting for basketball. I'm
rooting for basketball. Listen, I was going to Game 5. I canceled my ticket because of course, at this point in the season, I have to get a ticket that's fully refundable. And now I'm planning for Game 7.
All right, Kim. Well, I'm gonna see you Friday at Toyota Center. Be there.
We'll see.
Or be there or be square. This is the B Block Podcast. That is Kim Davis. Want to thank her again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Arthur. Appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate your time and the friendship. And look, we're gonna chop it up and see what we got going on Friday from Toyota Center. So
Absolutely.
so for Kim Davis of Chalk Talk, I am B Scott. And until next time, man, y'all be good.